stars on Daily Fantasy Football. Look no further.
He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
The stats have been compiled. The research is done. So come on and win a mill with D-Will.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy D-Will, and this is finally time to make some money. Windmill with D-Will, week 1 edition. You gotta love it. I love it. I don't know if you love it, but I love it. I'm excited. It's time to finally win some money. Week 1, 2018, and it is finally money time. Time to get to the money. Hey, speaking of money, there's no way that you can win this money if you're not able to watch football. Not just watch football, but watch every game every Sunday. And the only way that you can do that is if you go to DirecTV and get DirecTV's NFL Sunday ticket. You can call 1-855-946-6343. Tell them D-Will sent you. Again, 855-946-6343. Tell them D-Will sent you. They will give you NFL Sunday ticket for free with the $45 package, over 150 channels. And hey, they'll even throw in your movie channels for free for the first 3 months. You can't really miss it. Cable is really over with. It's time to move to DirecTV. You get over 150 channels for $45 plus NFL Sunday ticket at no additional cost. How can you give it up? And one more thing, I just gotta let y'all know something. As we start to move into the regular season, you really need to pay attention to RotoSurance. That's RotoSurance, RotoSurance. You gotta pay attention to them because you can protect your daily fantasy football investment against your star players getting hurt. All you gotta do is go to RotoSurance, and now if you actually use the code DWILL, that is DWILL, all caps, you will get 20% off. Again, 20% off if you use the code DWILL. That's D-Will because this is Win a Mill with D-Will. And they'll give you 20% off, and you can protect yourself against losing money because your best player got hurt. All right, y'all ready to move into this week? This is the first week, and we're going to break down by positions. We're going to start off with quarterbacks. You ready? All right, so, quarterbacks have always been a little difficult for me in week 1, and that's really because we don't really have any data to go with. I like to do everything based off of numbers, based off of data, and unfortunately for week 1, we don't really know if the defenses from last year are going to be the same best defenses from this year. I know there should be some new guys on the block. We'll talk about that when we get to the defense category. But when we start out, I just don't want to spend a lot of money on the quarterback. I just don't want to be able to do that because I want to be able to save some of my money, obviously, for those players where I really think that there is some bang for your buck. The thing about quarterback is the difference between your top tier quarterback like Tom Brady, if we're talking about the main slate. Do remember that we're only talking about the main slate. So I'm not talking about Thursday's game, so I won't be talking about Nick Foles, Matt Ryan, or anything like that. We're only talking about the main slate of games, which is the Sunday games. So we talk about Tom Brady. He's $7,200. He should be a given. You know you're going to get 20 plus points with him. But I just feel like there's too many other players that you can actually get 20 plus points from. And there would be no reason to spend $7,200. One of those players would be Deshaun Watson, who's actually going against New England this year. New England's defense isn't necessarily the best defense. I expect for Deshaun Watson to really be able to put some points on the board against New England. I think New England is going to be able to keep up, obviously, with Tom Brady having to keep up with Houston. I think the Houston and New England game is going to be one that you can really put some money into, because I think it is going to be one of those games where it's not a defensive struggle, although Houston has has a pretty good defense. I just don't believe that they're going to be able to outright just shut down New England, and I think New England is going to have to keep up with Houston because, unfortunately, New England's defense really can't stop the Houston offense. It's just not going to happen. And for that, Deshaun Watson is actually a great quarterback to actually choose. Not the quarterback that I'm going to choose. If you listened to the top 10 quarterbacks podcast that we put out a few weeks back, I talked about who I thought was going to be one of the top 3 well, actually my number one quarterback. He's been the top 3 over the last few years, and that is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson can get it done. He's going to get it done with his legs. He's going to get it done in the air with his arm. I just feel like Russell Wilson at $6,200, which is still $500 cheaper than even a Deshaun Watson, is going to still get you 20 plus points. I'm not confident that he may score more points than Deshaun Watson. However, I feel like there's only going to be a 3 or 4 point difference, maybe a 5 point difference. And unfortunately, I think I can make up more than that in my running back, being able to have that extra $500 to pick a running back or a wide receiver. So Russell Wilson would be the player that I believe is going to be a good player to go with. Somebody else that you can definitely choose, that I definitely look at, that's $100 cheaper than even Russell Wilson, would be Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is going to be back, guys. I mean, let's just say it like it is. I mean, he sat out a year. We didn't really get to see him last year, and unfortunately, the way the human mind works is if we don't see it, then we forget about it. I'm not one of those type of people. Andrew Luck is a good quarterback, and assuming that he's playing, which it does look like he is. Obviously, I'm recording this on Monday, on Labor Day, so anything can happen during the week. But assuming that Andrew Luck is playing, then he is actually at $6,100, one of the best picks that you can actually pick up. And I also talked about Jimmy Garoppolo. I still feel like Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be one of the good quarterbacks this year. He's only at $5,700, and Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get it done. Now, this week, he's playing against Minnesota. I personally feel like Minnesota is going to be a very good defense. They're going to be a defense that's hard to move the ball on, so I don't expect or suggest for you to necessarily take Jimmy Garoppolo this week, but he is $5,700 if you want to take a chance on it. You absolutely could, but my pick is going to be Russell Wilson, and I'll even pick somebody else like a Dak Prescott for $5,500. They're going against Carolina. I feel like he's going to have to score somewhere in that 20-point range as well. Tyrod Taylor over at Cleveland, I think, is going to shock a lot of people. Pittsburgh, obviously, we don't really know what's going on with the Le'Veon Bell situation, because at the time that I've recording this, even though everybody expects him to come in today, Le'Veon Bell is still not in, and I just don't expect for that defense to be as good as it normally is. So while we're talking about Le'Veon Bell, let's move to running backs. You ready? All right, so with the running backs, we're talking about Le'Veon Bell already, and I'm just going to tell you, regardless if he comes in today, the day before, I don't care when he comes in at this point, I don't see picking Le'Veon Bell at $9,400. That's way too much money for a player who hasn't had any preseason. He hasn't had any really extensive training as far as getting in football shape. We all saw what happened to him last year, and I know I've said that pretty much all season or all season long, that Le'Veon Bell was going to struggle in the first couple of weeks, and the longer he prolongs it, honestly, it takes it. Even if you look at the stats, I mean, the first 10 weeks of the year, Le'Veon Bell really only did just under 4 yards a carry. Now, the last 6, and even into the moving beyond that, he had some incredible numbers, but those first 10 weeks actually was under 4 yards per carry. And that first game was a big reason for that. Obviously, that brought down the Bell curve a little bit, just because I don't think he got more than 50 yards in that first game. I think it was 38 yards and 10 carries, if I remember correctly. And that's just not worth it to pick up first week. This is daily fantasy sports. We can come back to Le'Veon Bell later, but not this week. I just don't suggest it. Now, I told you that I thought Ezekiel Elliott was going to be good. There has been injury to the offensive line there, with Travis Frederick going out. And they don't even know when Travis Frederick is coming back, but I still feel like that the Dallas Cowboys are going to have a very good offensive line. They still have 4 of the 5 players that they had slated to start. They have Joe Looney there, who is a credible backup. They brought in a lineman from Kansas City to kind of be a swing player on the interior. I just feel like that Ezekiel Elliott is still going to get the job done. Leonard Fournette playing against the Giants, definitely feel like that he's going to get the job done as well. And you can take any of the guy, Alvin Kamara, obviously playing against Tampa Bay. I mean, he's $8,500. I still don't really know if the extra $10,000 from Alvin Kamara, I mean, they have him at $800 more than Ezekiel Elliott. At that point, I'd rather go with Zeke, and that's just my honest opinion. Not just because I'm a Cowboys fan, but because I am looking at the business, I'm looking at the money, I'm looking at the salary cap, and I just feel like even a Leonard Fournette at $7,100 is going to give you more bang for your buck than Alvin Kamara at $8,500. Even if he scores more points, it's just how much more expensive he actually is. But beyond that, unless you're doing something crazy, and I actually have one where I think I used Dak Prescott as a quarterback, and then I picked Ezekiel Elliott and Leonard Fournette. I stacked up on running backs. Just wanted to kind of see how that was going to work, because there's a lot of wide receivers that I was able to pick at some lower money choices that were able to still get me where I needed to be. So that's kind of what I chose to do. But unless you're doing something like that, I have a couple of other choices for that second running back that you should really look at. And the number one person at that second running back to look at is Adrian Peterson. Now, I don't know how long this Adrian Peterson thing is going to go, but I do know that at $4,700, Adrian Peterson is the starting running back for the Washington Redskins. And guess what? Peterson is going to get the rock, because let's just face it, the offense over there is about handing that running back and grinding the ball out. And I think if Peterson is doing his job, the Washington Redskins are going to be pretty difficult to beat. Not that they're going to be a great team, but they're not going to be pushovers either. Adrian Peterson at $4,700 actually opens up a lot of opportunities for you. I mean, he just does. There's just so many opportunities for you to be able to pick players at other positions, because you only spent $4,700 on a running back that probably is going to get you, and this is just my assumption, he's probably going to get you the same 20-25 points that the Zekes, the Alvin Kamara, those type of players are, because Adrian Peterson is a beast. He has fresh legs. He showed out in the preseason. I think that's going to be a great choice for you. Now, another choice, Alex Collins. He's a running back for the Ravens. I understand that we didn't get to see a lot of him during the preseason. I think there was only 3 carries at around 33 yards, which is still pretty good. I mean, 11 yards to carry at that point. But I'm just letting you know that he's the starting running back for the Baltimore Ravens. He's going to get touches, and he's going to have yards. He's going to score some points. He's a great second running back pick, $5,600. He's going to definitely give you some points and some value. I'm not sure if I like him better than the Adrian Peterson pick, but he is, Alex Collins, a great choice for the running back. So now it's time for us to move to the wide receivers. Are you ready? So for wide receivers, DraftKings was nice enough to send me my best draft, or my best picks of 2017, and I looked at my top pick, which I believe was week 10. I scored just under 200 points, or just over 200 points rather, and a big part of that was because Antonio Brown scored 45 points that week. That's right, Antonio Brown is a beast of a player. However, I'm not big on Antonio Brown or anybody from Pittsburgh in week 1. Only in week 1. Definitely quote me on that. Just in week 1. I'm not sure that Antonio Brown, without the threat of Le'Veon Bell running all over the place, is going to still have the same looks that he would later on in the season. And I'm definitely going to be coming back to Antonio Brown as we move later on in the season. If you're going to pick one of the top $8,000+ wide receivers, I definitely would suggest that be DeAndre Hopkins. Again, I just don't feel that New England's defense is going to be able to keep up with Houston, so I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be able to score points. That whole tandem of DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson just sounds like a great idea this week. Definitely something that you should look at, maybe putting into play. But Deshaun Hopkins is $8,300, and that's kind of high, especially when there's plenty of $7,000 running backs like Odell Beckham Jr., who is at exactly $7,000. He is going against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville is a very good defense. They have great cornerbacks. Not picking Odell this week. I'm not even, well, Julio Jones isn't a choice because he's playing on Thursdays. But there are so many good players in the $7,000 range, like Keenan Allen. That Kansas City and Los Angeles Charger game may be the only game that scores more points than the Houston-New England game that I was talking to you about. Keenan Allen is a great pick. He's at $7,500. I think that's going to be, easily something that you can take. I think A.J. Green in the Cincinnati Indianapolis game. A.J. Green is actually another one, $7,300. I mean, you have Adam Thielen at $6,900. Adam Thielen is one of the top 10 or at least one of my top 10 wide receivers this year. And I know they have him listed as questionable, but I know that he's probably going to play, and he's going to play in the slot. Again, Vikings are going to have a very good team this year, and I don't expect for Adam Thielen to not produce. At $6,900, I don't see how he doesn't make the team. I also think T.Y. Hilton, oh my goodness, T.Y. Hilton is really degraded at $6,800 simply because Andrew Luck wasn't there last year, and their quarterback play last year was not good. Andrew Luck is back. That means T.Y. Hilton is back at $6,800. He is a great choice for wide receiver. Tyreek Hill, again, the Kansas City Los Angeles Chargers game is going to be a game. I just talked about it in the wide receivers, the top 10 wide receivers. Tyreek Hill outran 3 people. And this is a Kansas City offense who's going to look to get him the ball and get him the ball a lot. Stephon Diggs at $6,300 for Minnesota. Again, Minnesota with a high-powered offense, and I just don't understand why I would want to, again, pick one of the top $8,000 players when all of these good wide receivers are available. All of these guys are going to get you a decent amount. I mean, if you look at their fantasy point per game, their estimates, I mean, you're looking at 15 to 20 points, even estimates, just judging off of what they did last year. And you can get some consistency there. And you just know that one of those players are going to be able to take off. I'm still, like I said, a big fan of T.Y. Hilton, even though they have him where his fantasy points per game is just 11.8. However, again, Andrew Luck is back. I think that is a great player to be able to choose. So my suggestion here is I think there's plenty of $6,000 and $7,000 players where you don't have to take a DeAndre Hopkins. But if you want to take DeAndre Hopkins and use some of those guys separate, then it's obviously a great opportunity for you to try to get that big hit this very, very first time. But now it's time to move over to our tight ends. Are you ready? Not going to spend a whole lot of time on the tight ends. I will say that everyone is saying that this is going to be the year that Rob Gronkowski is going to get a record amount of yards, catches, and touchdowns. And I believe it. I'm just not necessarily willing to say that it's going to happen this week. And again, first week, I don't really like taking the most expensive players on the board. Rob Gronkowski is $6,900. There's too many good $5,000, even $4,000 tight ends on the board for me to really have to deal with a Gronk. I just don't see why I would have to deal with somebody like that. And the easiest thing for me to do right now is to go the same way we did it last year. Until they prove me otherwise, the New York Giants, tight end against the Giants, has always scored points, always scored touchdowns. Safarian Jenkins, who is going to be one of the better tight ends this year for Jacksonville, is there playing the Giants, and he's only $3,200. I can't see why you'd want to go anywhere else in your tight end position. As far as the flex positions are concerned, I feel like any of the wide receivers that I mentioned to you earlier, even if you want to use Adrian Peterson, as I mentioned, at $4,700, that's a great range for your flex position where you can still go out and maybe get a couple of other players. But like I said, at $4,700, he is a great flex position player to be able to add in there. Any of those wide receivers that were $6,000 should be a good choice. And then even the running back at $5,500 that we mentioned, just had a blank. It was Alex Collins. Even for him, you would look at him at $5,600 and say, hey, that's not a bad flex position. Lastly, we want to go to the defenses. And that defense position, I'm going to, I'm looking at some teams where I don't have to be at the top. The Baltimore Ravens, the Jaguars. I said I know that the Vikings are going to be good, but I'm going to tell you another team who is going to be good, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals at $2,500, maybe one of the better choices. They're playing Washington. I know I said Washington's defense is going to be pretty good. I expect for Adrian Peterson to do okay, but I expect for the Arizona Cardinals to be able to keep the score down, and I also expect for them to be able to create some turnovers. They created lots of turnovers in the preseason, and I expect for them to create some turnovers here in week 1. That's just how their coach has taught them. That's what the focus has been, and I expect for them to be able to do that. At 2,500 points, I think that is one of the better value picks that you're going to get. Last year in week 1, my top value pick was actually the defense that I chose in week 1. I do believe that it's going to be the same way this week. So there you have it. It's time to win a meal with D. Will, yo. You guys put together your teams. If you want to follow me, Instagram, I heard D. Will, IHEARD. DWILL. I heard D. Will, Instagram and Twitter. Hit me up. Let me know that you want to play. We'll find each other on DraftKings and give it a spin. I'll take your money. I don't have a problem with it. All right. Until next week, we'll holler at you. It's Win a Meal with D. Will, and I'm out.